Danny Ainge joined the Celtics broadcast throughout this Celtics and Bucks matchup and was a bit critical of what he had to say about Jayson Tatum's shot selection. We break it down, but first things first, this segment is brought to you once again by 1-in-100. Head over to 1in100.co where you can enter your name for a raffle to win tickets to future Celtics games, other sporting events, and other concerts going on in the city. That's 1in100.co. Sign up today. Jayson Tatum's not the first time I've heard this conversation about his shot selection. Some people blame Kobe Bryant.
The mama mentality.
Some people blame people not being as critical with Tatum because of what he did in last year's postseason. Where do you fall in this conversation, Chris? Do you think that maybe Jayson Tatum could be a little better with his shot selection, or do you think that this is just part of the growing pains and his development and that he has to sort of go through this hurdle before he becomes a quote-unquote superstar in this league?
Well, of course, he's still going through his development. There's plenty of things that are still going. He's so young. I mean, it's fine. But, yeah, I do have a little bit of an issue right now with his shot selection. It's being a little critical, but watching him take a lot of those 20-footers, those long twos, drives me nuts. And he did that a lot tonight. With time, it'll come, and as this offense gets some flow, I'm sure a lot of it is the stagnant periods that this offense goes through as they continue to find their flow. But, yeah, right now I do have an issue with some of those long twos.
I have an issue with all those long twos.
Only some of them.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I said some
I
of
mean,
them.
the last
A
video.
couple of them-
Explain, Jerry.
couple of
Last-
them went
yeah.
in.
So the last video we did was all about the virtue of not taking the long two.
Yeah.
And Jayson, early in his career, in his rookie season, I think really had it down pat. And then he kind of fell back into old habits, recovering from his injury. And then he just was having so much success because he found that all of his stuff he could do at Duke, it turns out actually works pretty damn well in the NBA too.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to turn into Carmelo Anthony. This is the important part.
Don't
And there's a lot of reasons why
say
that's
that.
not happening, because he's a good defender and he's trying to be a good playmaker.
It's a scary thought.
And he actually kind of grabs and goes off the catch. Stuff that Melo hasn't really done, even though Melo's an insanely good scorer. But what he does do is he'll go into a step back, or he'll settle for a step back from 18 feet. Frankly, I think his offensive game mirrors Kyrie a lot. I think he's learning most of these habits. It's not from Kobe, it's from Kyrie. And
Interesting.
Kyrie, the same criticisms that the coaching staff and the front office have had about shot selection for Tatum tend to apply to Kyrie as well. I think one of the big differences for Kyrie is that, one, he's way more experienced, so he's been kind of trying to learn this for a little bit longer. And as a point guard, he's getting a lot of DHOs over the top, like at 28 feet out, or he's running pick and roll coming over his screen. Tatum, a lot of the time, is kind of, sometimes he's getting those DHOs, but they're usually kind of closer to the hoop. They're not deep into the three-point area where he's able to really like take a dribble and step into it, or he's kind of getting ISO situations and he's trying to get kind of deeper so that he can get separation. So the key for him is lateral movement. This is something I've talked to people on the team about, is for him, his movement needs to be more lateral instead of more north to south.
Correct.
I think he's used to being north to south, and then he has amazing footwork so he can create separation off of that. But he's got to get used to curling around the three-point line and getting separation that way. And I think a lot of it is just kind of strength. I mean, he's already an amazing shooter. He's becoming a good shooter off the catch. I'd say right now he's a good shooter off the catch if we're using kind of all-stars as the barometer there. But he's just got to get more powerful, get more leg strength, and then I think he'll be more confident just being able to pull up from 26 feet out.
Yeah,
He could learn a lot about that lateral movement from Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward creates a lot of separation, or at least he has in his career, through some of that lateral separation. So that's someone to look at.
Yeah, Jerry, you bring up Kyrie Irving. What I see in him a lot, and you talk about lateral movement, those early years of Paul Pierce, that was sort of part of his game that he had to polish throughout the first few years of his career here in Boston, knowing how to move, how to use his footwork. Obviously, he wasn't the quickest guy out there. That was obviously a huge knock on his game. Jayson Tatum does have that first step, whereas Paul Pierce wasn't quite there in terms of what we're seeing out of Tatum. But the similarities that I see between Pierce and Tatum is the lateral movement, knowing how to move, throughout those pick and roll sets, and knowing when to go for the fadeaway and settle for the fadeaway shot, or when to go to the hoop and drive and finish strong.
Do you think creating some of that lateral separation is an immediate fix for something like shot selection? Yeah.
For him, it's about when he crosses the three-point line, it's about, instead of going to his right or his left or keep moving forward, it's about doing a full step back.
Yeah.
That's the key. I think he needs to be able to do, Victor Oladipo had an amazing move against, I think it was New York last night, where he went into a very low dribble through the legs move, and he stepped back like 7 feet. It was insane. And I think it was like an 18-footer, but it was the kind of move that we don't see Tatum do very often. He's so good at going left and right, but we just don't see him do the huge step back very often. He likes to fade. He's kind of used to using
Yeah.
his 6'8", 6'9" frame for that. He's got to learn to get really low, which is something that he's always had trouble with, and it's a big part of his development that his trainers, his dad, the coaching staff has talked to me about a lot in the past. It's about he doesn't like bending at the waist. He doesn't like bending his knees very much.
Right.
What makes you great as a basketball player is your ability to stay on balance while moving as much in whatever space you have. So if you're 7 feet tall, if you can get really low, that means that when you stand up, they can't do anything
Right.
about it. Like, they can't hit you.
Yeah.
So when you stand up from going really low, you're going to elevate so far over everybody.
Right.
And that's what's going to make Jayson a 30-point scorer if he ever is going to get to that level.
Right. It could happen. We'll see what happens. We'll keep a close eye on Jayson Tatum, and we'll see how he does throughout this 5-game road trip.